Hey everybody, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going way back in time today to ancient Africa, a time before writing, before cities even, before the wheel. We're going on a quest to uncover the roots of human knowledge. We'll be exploring the story of Tehuti, the master of masters who gifted humanity with the tools for civilization, at least according to tradition.
Yeah, it really is amazing to think that even back then, humans were struggling with those big questions, seeking ways to understand the world around them and their place in it. The story of Tehuti, as told in Day of Djehuty, humanity's sacred vow, offers such a unique perspective on that ancient quest for knowledge.
So paint a picture for us of this time period. What were the challenges faced by those early humans?
Imagine a world where survival was the only focus, where knowledge was passed down orally, and the concept of hygiene, well, it was practically non-existent. The source describes early humans struggling, just like any other animal, to meet their basic needs.
Sounds like a pretty tough existence.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder how humanity managed to make such progress, building pyramids and coming up with complex philosophical systems.
And that's where the idea of no new inventions comes into play. The source argues that human ingenuity, it's not about creating knowledge from thin air, it's more about observing, adapting, and building upon what already exists.
So like taking inspiration from birds to develop flight. We didn't just invent airplanes.
Right.
We observed the principles of aerodynamics in nature, then applied them to our own creations.
Precisely. So if we follow that logic, it leads us to a fascinating question. Where did the original building blocks of human knowledge come from?
Well, Day of Djehuty, humanity's sacred vow, suggests it was divine intervention. A divine being called a Neater named Obur recognized humanity's struggles and decided to step in, gifted humans with knowledge and skills.
It wasn't just random bits of information, though, when Aiders taught essential skills, like farming, communication, even basic hygiene, things that directly address the problems early humans faced, which laid the foundation for a more organized and civilized way of life.
So it's like Djehuty gave humanity the initial push to evolve beyond survival and start building something greater. But even with these new skills, something was still missing, wasn't it?
Yes, humanity still lacked a sense of purpose, a guiding force. The source describes humans wanting to understand the world on a deeper level. They looked to the divine for inspiration. They were like, we want to be like you.
And that yearning to be like the divine sets the stage for Tehuti to come in. The source describes a really important moment. On the 19th day of Tehuti, according to the sidereal calendar, this is when Tehuti showed humanity a blueprint for replicating the world of the gods.
This blueprint took the form of 77 ordinances. There were guidelines for living a life aligned with divine principles. And what's so interesting is that the source suggests everything we know today, like religions and languages and customs and inventions, can be traced back to this moment with Djehuty.
So Tehuti basically gave humanity a roadmap for progress, a way to build a world that mirrored the divine order. Let's talk about Djehuty himself. Spiritual teachings of Djehuty says he was a true polymath, an expert in so many things.
He's associated with astronomy and architecture, geometry, medicine, metaphysics, spirituality. The list just goes on. And this is reflected in the Hermetica, a collection of teachings attributed to him, which had a huge and lasting impact on civilizations all across the globe.
It's crazy to think about how one person could have such a wide influence. Djehuty, African master of all masters, Black Voice News, even mentions historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, and Carl Jung be inspired by Tehuti's works.
Yeah, it really shows the timeless nature of his teachings. Tehuti's wisdom went beyond cultural and time boundaries, offering insights into being human that are still relevant centuries later.
Now, this same source talks about the symbolism associated with Djehuty. He's often depicted as a baboon or an ibis. What's the significance behind these images?
The baboon, with its thinking expression, represents deep thought and being able to access higher knowledge. The ibis is a waiting bird, embodies the process of learning spiritually, patiently moving through consciousness to reach the truth.
That image of waiting is really powerful. It captures that sense of effort, the constant seeking required to find those deeper truths.
And it ties into Tehuti's role as Thoth, the measurer, the god of thought in ancient Egypt. He believed in using both logic and intuition to access wisdom, not just blind faith or intellect. It was about finding a balance.
And talking about deep insights, there's a story in this source about Tehuti's knowledge of ultra-microscopic things, concepts we could only confirm with modern technology centuries later.
The source suggests that Tehuti understood things like atoms and molecules way before science had the tools to see them. It makes you wonder about the depth of his knowledge, and whether there are still hidden insights in his teachings just waiting to be rediscovered.
It's a pretty amazing thought, that maybe we've only scratched the surface of what Djehuty had to offer. And Djehuty, African Master of Masters, goes on to say that he was the teacher's teacher, saying that he focused on truth and the process of spiritual progress.
He believed that we evolve spiritually by raising our vibrations, aligning ourselves with the cosmic mind. But he also said that this journey is full of internal struggles and challenges.
Sounds like a path that needs dedication, self-reflection, and a willingness to look at our own limitations. Now, this source also mentions 42 papyrus scrolls attributed to Djehuty, containing tons of knowledge on different subjects, including magic and the Book of Going Forth by Day. Have you heard of these scrolls?
They're legendary. They're said to hold all of Tehuti's wisdom, from the practicalities of Egyptian law to the mysteries of the afterlife. Some scholars think they're still out there, waiting to be found.
Wow. Talk about a historical treasure hunt. It really shows how influential Djehuty was, not just in ancient Egypt, but around the world.
Absolutely. His influence wasn't limited to Egypt. It spread way beyond. He's linked to Hermes in Greek mythology. Even figures like Buddha and other Eastern sages have been connected to his teachings. His wisdom truly went beyond cultural boundaries.
It's amazing to think how Djehuty's legacy continues to impact us today. Inspiring philosophical, scientific, and spiritual exploration, his teachings, as seen in the Hermetic tradition, in texts like the Emerald Tablet and the Kabbalion, still offer insights for those looking for knowledge and understanding.
And that's what makes Djehuty so interesting. He represents the enduring power of wisdom, the idea that knowledge rooted in truth and universal principles can go beyond time and continue to help us understand the human experience.
Well, that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into the world of Djehuty, the African Master of Masters.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the wisdom of Djehuty. Last time we were exploring the fascinating origins of his teachings and just how much knowledge he had. Now let's get practical. What were some of the key principles Djehuty focused on, and how can we use those today?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one thing to be amazed by Djehuty's vast knowledge, but how do we actually use his wisdom in our own lives? What can we learn from him to help us navigate all the challenges and opportunities in our modern world?
One of the main things in Djehuti's teachings, as Spiritual Teachings of Djehuty points out, is the concept of the divine mind, this idea that God is oneness.
Okay, so there's this ultimate source of wisdom in creation, but how does that apply to us? How do we connect with this divine mind?
Djehuty taught that our human mind is a reflection of the divine mind. We each have a spark of that universal consciousness within us. We're not separate from it, we're a part of it.
So by getting to know our own minds, exploring our consciousness, we can connect with this source of wisdom and creativity. That's powerful.
It really is. And it leads to another key principle that Djehuty emphasized, the power of thought. Remember, he's also known as Thoth, the measurer, the god of thought in ancient Egypt. He understood that our thoughts are really powerful. They shape the reality we experience.
So it's not just that thoughts happen to us. We're creating our experiences through what we think and what we believe.
Exactly. And Day of Djehuty talks about how humanity can imitate the divine. That goes further than just actions. It includes our thoughts. By aligning our thoughts with the divine mind, with ideas like truth, justice, and harmony, we become co-creators.
That's a lot of responsibility. It means that if we want a more fulfilling and meaningful life, we need to pay attention to our thoughts, make them positive and constructive.
Absolutely. This brings us to another principle Djehuty stressed, the importance of balance and harmony. He talked about ma'at, a concept that represents truth, justice, cosmic order, and living in tune with natural laws.
But it's about finding that balance inside ourselves and how we relate to the world. It's about understanding that what we do has consequences and trying to live in a way that creates harmony instead of chaos.
You got it. Djehuty's teachings say that by aligning ourselves with these principles of ma'at, we can tap into a deeper wisdom and create a more fulfilling and meaningful life. It's not about forcing our will on the world. It's more about finding our place in the natural order of things.
Now, Djehuty, African Master of Masters, mentions that Djehuty didn't just teach these big philosophical concepts. He gave practical advice for spiritual growth, too. Can you tell us more about that?
He talked about the importance of vibrations, this idea that our thoughts and emotions have a frequency, and we can raise that frequency to be more aligned with the divine.
So it's like we're tuning ourselves to a higher channel, one that resonates with more wisdom, love, compassion, but how do we actually raise our vibration? Is it just about thinking happy thoughts?
It's more than that. It's about choosing positive thoughts and emotions, practicing things like kindness, forgiveness, and gratitude, and doing things that connect us to our inner selves and the divine, like meditation, prayer, or even just spending time in nature.
But the source also says, this path of spiritual growth isn't always easy. Tehuti knew that we all face internal struggles, temptations, and challenges.
He was very down to earth about human nature. He got that growth comes with bumps in the road, that we face obstacles, doubts, times when we might be tempted to go off course. But he also emphasized that by sticking with it, staying true to what we believe in, and keeping our eyes on a higher goal, we can get through those tough times and experience real spiritual growth.
It's good to know that even Djehuty, this master of masters, knew that the path to enlightenment isn't a smooth ride. Makes his teachings feel more real, more human.
Yeah, it does. It reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to be on the right track. It's about the journey. It's about always trying to learn, grow, and live up to our full potential.
What's so cool about Tehuti's teachings is that they still resonate with us today, even though they're thousands of years old. We're still dealing with the same big questions about life's purpose, meaning, and our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
That's the power of timeless wisdom. It gets to the heart of what it means to be human no matter what time or culture we live in. Tehuti's teachings give us a map to navigate these questions, a map to finding fulfillment and enlightenment.
We've covered the divine mind, the power of thought, the need for balance and harmony, and the journey of spiritual growth. Are there any other big ideas from Djehuty we should talk about?
Yeah, there's one that really stands out. It's perfectly captured in a Hermetic saying, as above, so below. This is the principle of correspondence. It basically means that the small reflects the big, that the patterns and rules we see in the universe are also reflected within us.
Oh, I see. So by looking at the world around us, by observing nature, the cosmos, and even the patterns in our own lives, we can learn about ourselves, and the other way around.
Exactly. This idea ties back to the belief that the universe is inherently ordered and meaningful. Djehuty thought that by understanding the universal laws, the patterns that govern creation, we could live in greater harmony with ourselves and the cosmos.
It makes me think of the human body, how intricate it is. It's like a mini version of the complex workings of the universe. Or look at the cycles of nature, birth, growth, decay, rebirth. They reflect the rhythms in our own lives.
Those are great examples. We can use this principle in so many parts of life. For example, if we look at how balanced and interconnected ecosystems are, we can learn to create more balance and sustainability in our own societies. And if we understand how things grow and adapt in nature, we can use those same principles for our own personal growth and development.
I love how Tehuti's teachings bring together philosophy, spirituality, and practical wisdom. It's not just about thinking big ideas, it's about how we live our lives and how we interact with the world.
That's why his wisdom is so enduring and relevant. It gives us a whole life approach to living a more meaningful life, one that combines our thoughts, actions, and our connection to something bigger.
Speaking of connection, one thing that stood out to me about Djehuty is his association with communication. He's credited with creating hieroglyphs. And he's also known as a messenger of the gods.
Right. And this shows just how important communication is for us, too, both in expressing ourselves honestly and in making real connections with others.
The Black Voice news source says something really interesting about how Djehuty communicated. It says that his teachings were rooted in the soul's fountain of wisdom.
That's a beautiful way to say it. It suggests that real communication goes beyond just words. It comes from deep inside us, from a place of authenticity, wisdom, and being connected to our inner truth.
So it's not just what we say, but how we say it and why we're saying it. Are we speaking from love and understanding, or are we trying to manipulate or control someone? Are we really listening or just waiting for our turn to talk?
Exactly. That's something to think about in all our interactions, whether we're writing or speaking or just chatting with a friend. Are we coming from a place of genuineness and honesty? Or are we just putting on a show or trying to get something?
It's a powerful reminder to pay attention to how we communicate, to use it to connect and understand, not to divide and manipulate.
Tehuti's teachings have a lot to say about the art of communication. They emphasize being clear, being honest, and recognizing how powerful words are. Words shape our reality and the reality of those around us.
Wow. This has been an amazing journey so far. We've explored where Tehuti's wisdom came from. We've dug into some of his main ideas, and we've even started thinking about how we can apply all this in our own lives.
And we still have so much more to explore.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We've been learning about the amazing story and wisdom of Tehuti, this African master of knowledge, whose influence seems to have reached so many different cultures. In this final part, I'm curious about his legacy. How did his wisdom last for thousands of years, and how is it still impacting us today?
It is remarkable how Tehuti's teachings crossed borders and cultures. Remember, Djehuty, African master of all masters, Black Voice News, it pointed out that his influence went way beyond Egypt, to places like Greece and India, and even further.
Like, his wisdom was planted all over the world, sprouting up in different forms and traditions. He's Hermes in Greek mythology. He's linked to Buddha in Eastern traditions, even connected to that Celtic figure Cuchulainn. That's a long journey for a set of ideas.
It really shows how universal his teachings are. They deal with those core questions we all have, about existence, our purpose, and our relationship with something divine. Questions that people in every culture and time period have asked.
That same source also talked about Tehuti leaving behind hidden repositories of knowledge all over the world. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like some kind of global treasure hunt for ancient wisdom.
Those repositories could be actual texts or secret traditions passed down through generations. Djehuty knew how important it was to keep this knowledge safe, to make sure his insights wouldn't be lost.
One way his legacy lives on is through the Hermetic tradition, which we've mentioned a few times. Can you give us a quick summary for those who might not be familiar?
Sure. Hermeticism is a philosophical and spiritual tradition that comes from Tehuti's teachings. It focuses on the interconnectedness of everything, the power of the mind, and the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment. It's like a thread connecting ancient Egyptian thought to different philosophical and mystical ideas throughout history.
And some of the important Hermetic texts, like the Emerald Tablet and the Kabbalion, are still studied today, right? They seem to draw people in who are looking for deeper meaning.
Yes, they do. These texts offer deep insights into the nature of reality, universal laws, and the potential of human consciousness. They're essentially a distillation of Tehuti's wisdom, preserved and passed down over centuries.
Djehuty, African master of masters, lists other texts they say he wrote, including a huge 42-volume collection called the Sacred Books. They cover everything from magic to the laws of Egypt.
It shows just how broad and deep his influence was. He wasn't just a philosopher. He was a scientist, a priest, a magician, a master of language. His teachings covered pretty much every aspect of human life.
As we talk about Tehuti's legacy, I keep thinking about stories, how they carry wisdom from one generation to the next. They stay with us more than just facts sometimes.
That's so true. And Djehuty got that. He understood the power of storytelling. His teachings were often told through myths and stories, which made them more relatable and easier to remember. They capture our imagination and get us thinking about deeper truths.
Yeah, like that story of W. teaching humanity those basic skills. Or Djehuty presenting the 77 ordinances. These aren't just historical events. They're stories that show us profound truths about our relationship with something divine and how to live a fulfilling life.
Exactly. And that's a big reason why Tehuti's teachings are still relevant. They're woven into stories, which capture our imagination and inspire us to look for deeper meaning, making them timeless and relatable.
It reminds us that we can all help keep this wisdom alive, whether it's by telling stories ourselves, teaching others, or just by living our lives in a way that reflects what we believe in.
I like that. Tehuti's legacy isn't just about old books on a shelf. It's about keeping the flame of wisdom alive in ourselves and inspiring others to do the same.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Djehuty, what's the main thing you want listeners to take away? What can we learn from this master of masters?
I think the biggest takeaway is that ancient wisdom, even from thousands of years ago, can offer us amazing insights and guidance today. Tehuti's teachings remind us that the mind is powerful, that balance and harmony are crucial, and that there's so much potential for growth when we seek knowledge and truth.
His message is still important, even though he lived in such a different time. It reminds us that we are all part of something bigger, and that we have the power to make a positive difference in the world. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the fascinating world of Djehuty, the African master of masters. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
I know I did.
Be sure to check back every day for new episodes, where we'll keep exploring these amazing stories and uncovering hidden knowledge from all over. And if you're ready to go even deeper into ancient wisdom and personal transformation, visit www.ultimatemasters.org coaching. You'll find a ton of resources and guidance there to help you along the way. Until next time.